Now, of course, the first American athletes to test positive for the COVID-19 strain were Jazz teammates Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell.
What we determined today is that this hiatus will be most likely at least 30 days. And we don't know enough, as you've all said, to be more specific than that, but we wanted to give direction to our players and teams and to our fans that this is going to be roughly at least a month.
Well, obviously very concerned, but it's not necessarily about basketball. Obviously, this is much bigger than basketball.
Yes, the NBA season has been suspended. Rudy Gobert was tested positive for the coronavirus on Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. Donovan Mitchell was the next to get diagnosed. Yeah, the coronavirus has found its way into sports. This season will be on break for at least 1 month, but what does that mean for the NBA? What is up, dudes, dudettes, ballers, players? It's your boy MJ. Rudy Gobert really does deserve Defensive Player of the Year. He shut the whole league down. In all seriousness, this is bigger than basketball, so before I get into the potential impact of this, I want to take the time to talk a bit about the coronavirus and what we can do. The coronavirus, aka COVID-19, has already infected over 130,000 people worldwide, with over 100 countries affected. It's an airborne virus, meaning it spreads through the air and through contact, whether it's a dap up, handshake, or just touching an object. Just yesterday, New York City, where I live, declared a city of emergency since the number of cases rose by 50% in just one day. Cases have been nearly doubling every day in the US, while other countries are seeing a similar rise. While the coronavirus does have a lower fatality rate than the seasonal flu at 3%, it is simply more contagious. Individuals can have the coronavirus be contagious and still be asymptomatic, meaning no cough, no fever. Donovan Mitchell was tested positive for the virus and was feeling perfectly fine with no symptoms. Don't be careless like Rudy. Why? This virus tends to affect older people, while young adults and kids tend to be less affected, but everyone is at risk. The good news is that the US government has finally worked with the Center for Disease Control to have free coronavirus testing for everyone. There are a lot more people with the virus than confirmed cases, and because it's free to test, just call your local clinic and they will give you instructions. While most people end up recovering by themselves, there are those, especially older people and those with pre-existing conditions, that fall victim. As of right now, try to wash your hands for a minimum of 20 seconds and wash them often. Masks don't help, but if you do have to cough or sneeze, because a lot of people have the common cold too, do it into your arms so you don't spread into the air. Try to keep 6 to 8 feet of distance with people. The main thing is to just be cautious. In this case, it actually pays to be a hermit and avoid contact with society.
Bro.
The coronavirus isn't some death sentence, it's far from it. But let's not treat this as a joke, especially with all sports being shut down. There are estimates that 40 to 70% of the US population could at one point be infected by the coronavirus. Obama retweeted this article that showed this graph about why protective measures are so important, because we can reduce the peak of this, but it takes more than just one person to act. Tell your friends, let's just spread awareness. We don't need to panic, we just need to be educated. So with the season being suspended, there are a lot of uncertainties. No, this season is not cancelled, it is on break. At the current moment, the league is going to reconvene in 30 days to figure out what to do. And shout out to Adam Silver because he's been reacting to this super quickly. There are a few possibilities being thrown out there. We might resume and go straight into the playoffs with the current records and standings. That would mean that the Grizzlies would be the 8th seed and not the Pelicans. Dang it! I like you, Ja, but Zion and Lonzo versus LeBron and the Lakers? Come on now. That would also mean that players would lose money because they get paid on a per game basis, which could really impact players at the end of the bench with minimum contracts. There's also the possibility that Mark Cuban brought up that the season just resumes right from where we left off after this break, and the playoffs end up being pushed into July and August. Not sure what that would mean for players who end up making the playoffs and then barely get rest for the next season, or the trades in the offseason, because are players going to straight up just get traded on playoff teams? I don't know. The one certainty in this is that the NBA is on break for at least 30 days, and that actually means a lot when it comes to certain players. So drop a like if you want the NBA season to return. Please Send help. The NBA season really just paused, so please subscribe. I'm gonna be doing a lot of stories and Inside the Mind series that y'all love, trying to give y'all basketball content in this hiatus, so turn notifications on to all. I've been seeing the memes and jokes about the Nets being the 7th seed and getting Kyrie and KD back for a championship run. And while that is a possibility, alright, that would be downright unfair. But I want to focus on players and teams that seem to get impacted the most. The one player that I actually see benefiting the most from this break is James Harden. Harden has played the most minutes in the regular season in the NBA for the past 5 years at 13,731. He's averaged 36.7 minutes per game and he's only missed 18 games in the past 5 years, so less than 4 games a season. Yeah, he's been a tank that we sometimes take for granted, but he's also had to carry a pretty heavy load. It's the way the Rockets offense is designed. Now, the playoffs haven't always been Harden's best friend. While we could debate the style of play and why it doesn't work, Harden at times has looked out of gas in the playoffs. In 2017, D'Antoni said that Harden was tired throughout the series against the Spurs, in which he let a Kawhi-less Spurs beat him in Game 6 on his own home floor while playing without energy. A minimum of 1 month off means Harden gets a mini offseason to rest up and be geared to finish off 20 more games right into the playoffs, or if we resume, just go straight into the playoffs. He also gets to put a shooting slump that he was just in behind him, like he was 37% from the field in the past 5 games.
There it is! Oh my goodness, 10 turnovers for James Harden! A quadruple double!
So he can have his legs under him in the playoffs, which is important since the Rockets have no center and Harden is gonna guard the post, which means more defense that he's used to playing, and he definitely needs stamina for that. This also helps players with injuries like a Kyrie, KD, and Klay Thompson, but more importantly, players with nagging injuries get more time to rest. There's one player that comes to mind very specifically, and that's Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi has continuously dealt with the same quad injury that he had on the Spurs over 2 years ago. During his championship run with the Raptors, he was still dealing with that injury. It's why he load manages to make sure his body is ready for the playoffs.
Just limping around, but I ain't got to play no more games.
1 month off can help Kawhi get even more rest. That one downside is that there is no practice. Kawhi and PG barely practice together, so it might not be that big of a deal, but hey, the robot likes his tune-ups. This break could really end up hurting LeBron. LeBron meticulously plans this year out so that he is in peak physical condition at the end of April leading into May and June. My friend Sleepy Mish, aka the guy who made the outro song for his channel, made a really good point. LeBron tends to not play well from January to March. This has happened with the Cavs in 2017 and in 2018. Right before we see playoff LeBron going full berserk mode and most likely bully the Raptors. It's just part of his process. Remember, LeBron spends over $1 million per year on his health. It's down to a science, and when LeBron tries to activate playoff mode early last year, it didn't end up turning out too well. I know there was the injury, but just roll with it. There's also the concern about LeBron's age. Now, I know 1 month doesn't mean jack. I was of the same mindset until I realized how NBA players just drop off, like they straight up fall off a cliff. For example, Dwayne Wade averaged 18 points per game when he was 35. Next season, he averaged 11 points and just lost that step that kinda made his whole game click. Same thing happened to Carmelo from 2016-17 season to 2017-2018 season, dropping off from 22.4 points to 16.7 points. These are all-star players to role player type drop-offs. Allen Iverson had the same thing happen to him. It's just happened with a bunch of players in basketball. I'm not saying that this will happen, but everyone loses to Father Time. This is a super small chance of happening, like astronomically small, but it's worth mentioning. The Lakers are also a mostly older team that doesn't need to practice but needs games to keep that chemistry, which they might not have. The one player that I can see being the most upset is Giannis. Giannis has been playing low minutes at around 31 minutes a game for the entire season. To put this into perspective, Giannis has played 500 less minutes than Harden has this season and is 73rd in the league in total minutes played. This isn't necessarily to just save Giannis, but because the Bucks were blowing teams out, they had the advantage of resting players for extended periods of time. That advantage disappears with this break. Also, this is the best time for the Bucks to make the finals before Kyrie and KD are fully healthy, and before Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown take another step. The Bucks were in a groove, and this whole break can be enough to disrupt that. That, and also the whole MVP race narrative going in LeBron's favor right now, yeah, this ain't it.
Oh, come on, man.
I think almost all playoff teams are impacted a lot more than this, but this covers some of the most important players who seem to have the most impact on the outcome of the season. I could go into deeper detail for each team if you want, so let me know if you want that. There's also the concern that team practices are banned and players can't go into public gyms to work out either, so really they have to have courts in their own houses, which not every player does. I'm really interested to see how players will stay in shape because not all players have the facilities to do that if they're self-quarantined. This season was slated to be legendary. With no injuries, it was really going to be about which star could carry their teams to the promised land because there are so many great matchups. Now with this break, there are just more variables being thrown into the mix. I really just want to see the NBA season return, but what do you think? What will the NBA do if the season does resume? Who's going to win a chip? Drop a like if you want the season to return. I do, please. And if you hear you a real one, so comment wash so I know. And please take into consideration all the precautions with the coronavirus because we really can make a difference if we all work together. The Instagram shout of the day goes to Nico, and the all-day notification shout goes to my boy, Donovan Mitchell fan, Joshua, who's also in New York trying to survive. Thanks for the all-day support. Make sure to hit the bell for all notifications, and if you're not a sub, hit the subscribe button on the all-day community for more fire content, all-day support. It's your boy MJ. We out.
Okay, just stop in my spaceship. Okay, just stop in my spaceship. No.